Okay, so it's 8 o'clock. We'll just get started. So, thank you very much, dear devotees, for joining us once again on this lovely Thursday evening. And today it gives us great pleasure to welcome His Grace Chaturatma Prabhu. Chaturatma Prabhu is broadcasting live from the foothills of Govardhan, or so it appears, because at least his heart is always there. Um, but it's probable that he's also in Alatra in some level. So that's probably where. So welcome to the Ratna Prabhu. Special welcome to His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami Maharaj and all the devotees who have joined this evening. So pretty much everybody knows Chaturatma Prabhu. We introduced him the last time, but just another brief reintroduction. Chaturatma Prabhu joined way back in 1973 and received initiation in 1974 from Srila Prabhupada. And currently he's serving on the DD Management Board, Radha Shamsundar in Alachua, Florida. He's also an advisor for DD Worship Conference. He's very well known around the world for yagyas, pujas, samskaras, and so on, and especially in the areas of DD installation and DD worship. Of course, he's been studying very deeply over the last many decades, and it is always a pleasure to hear from him. So tonight we'll be hearing on the glories of Sri Govardhan. Hare Krishna. Welcome.
Hi, Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to speak about my Ishtadev. At least I like to tell myself he's my Ishtadev. I hope he agrees. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jananjana Shalakaya Chaksihun Militam Mira Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangumlam Jayate Girim Yakripatamaham Bande Shri Gurum Dinitarino Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Shri Gadadhar Shivasti Gaur Bhaktivinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namaste Girirajaya Shri Govardhana Namane Asesha Klesha Nashaya Paramananda Daine Govardhana Giri Tubhyam Gopanam Sarvarakshanam Namaste Deva Rupaya Devanam Shakadaine. How to speak about Govardhan in 15 minutes? Not even possible. 50 lifetimes we can't speak about Govardhan. So, but we're going to give it a shot here. We understand that everything in the material world has its duplicate replica, original replica, if you will, original source, we're the replica, in the spiritual world. So as we approach the topic of Sri Govardhan, I think it's appropriate to look at how does Govardhan appear in Goloka? How does this manifestation of this pastime appear there? So there are unlimited pastimes, unlimited activities that go on in the spiritual world. And all of those activities transfer themselves to this material world for the sake of Leela and for the sake of compassion on the fallen souls like us. So we'll start with, we find that one time Radha and Krishna, the gopis, they were resting in a beautiful kunja, beautiful bower in Goloka. They were enjoying quiet, very peaceful pastimes. And the acharyas describe that this bower had many different colored umbrellas, beautiful fragrant flower awnings, had multicolored strands of pearls, and in the background, there were a variety of gopis playing mridungas, flutes, and singing songs, all related to the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. You can just imagine, if you think for a moment, we have a little place to sit, so we put up an umbrella. I know out back of my house here, I have a little cement platform where I do some pujas. And so I had to put a tent up there because the sun was too much. So, all right, some brown colored tent. All right, there it is. When Radha and Krishna put a little something over their head, it's not just one something, but several, many different colored umbrellas. Some of them may be used just for the purpose of accenting the color. And then awnings all around the bower with all different types of colored flowers. And if the flowers being colorful wasn't enough, then decorating all of that with many different types of colored pearls. So this gives us an idea as to the beautiful, peaceful, enjoyable setting that we're witnessing here in this description. So Srimati Radharani looked at Shyam and she said to him, My dear Lord, if you're pleased with me, there is something I would like to ask of you. And if you will fulfill this one desire, it has actually been burning in my heart for quite some time. So Krishna immediately responded, yes, of course. I'll do anything for you. What is it I can fulfill for you? And she leaned very closely to Krishna's ear and she said, find some place in the vast forest of Vrindavan where we can enjoy beautiful, quiet pastimes, where you can create a place that our pastimes will be uninterrupted and undisturbed by any outsiders. So with this request being placed before him, Sri Krishna closed his eyes, meditated for a moment, and in his mind, he searched through all the different places in Braj, trying to find some place suitable to fulfill the desires of Srimati Radharani. And then it's described that as the gopis and Radhika looked upon Krishna while he was meditating in this way, a golden tear came from his eye and it manifested and fell to the ground. As it dropped to the ground, it immediately transformed into a beautiful golden mountain. Now, this was no ordinary mountain. First of all, it came from Krishna's tear. It had crystal clear lakes on it. It had beautiful running streams, beautifully effulgent caves. You know, some of you may be familiar with what they call spelunking. When I was in high school, I was in the spelunking club, and we would go caving. And you always have to wear a light on a helmet because it's always dark in these caves. There's no effulgence. But all of these caves on Govardhan were effulgent by the gems that were inside of them, that they weren't dark caves. So there were many varieties of flowering trees, many different creepers of every fragrant flower you could imagine, and unlimited birds of so many different colors singing so many different types of songs. So at the sight of this, even Krishna himself was amazed. Kind of look at, wow, look what I've created. Just see, my love, what I've made for you. Now, in a very, very short time, maybe just a moment or two, Govardhan expanded into 100 golden peaks. And each one of these peaks defeated the palaces of the Lord in Vaikuntha. Now, such a big mountain with 100 golden peaks didn't go unnoticed. All the Brijbasis saw this beautiful, effulgent mountain. They became very amazed. So they all came. And upon seeing this mountain, the cowherd men said, oh, we should call it Govardhan because it will be a suitable place for the shelter of the cows and because it will be filled with desire trees. So Govardhan, cows will be nourished there. So one of the special features on this Govardhan was that the grasses were very, very soft and tender. We have these grasses here in Florida that grow in the yard that if you walk barefoot, you're going to regret it. You're not very comfortable on your feet. What to speak of if you can imagine the soft tongue of a cow chewing this grass. So these grasses on Govardhan were very, very tender, very, very soft, and very sweet. And they were extremely tasty. And there were different types of grasses at different places that gave different flavors of milk when the cows ate them. So the elderly Gopas said, we should call this mountain Satashringa. Satashringa means that mountain which has 100 golden peaks. Excuse me. Satashringa, 100 golden peaks. So next, something very amazing happened. As Govardhan manifested these 100 golden peaks, it did not stop there. It began to expand and expand, expand and expand, and become bigger and bigger. And due to the fact that Govardhan was a manifestation of Krishna's love for Radharani, and his love is always expanding, similarly, Giriraj continued to expand and expand, and soon all of Gokula had nothing in it except Govardhan. Everything was pushed to the edge. And Govardhan was everywhere. He was everything. Now the residents, they began to complain. They came to Krishna and, Govardhan's pushing everything else out of the way. Come on, this isn't fair. So Krishna did something very amazing. Since he had created Govardhan, he stood up and he realized he had to resolve this situation. So he walked over to Govardhan and he slapped Govardhan Hill a good one. A very hard slap. And Govardhan came to his senses and then shrank down to a manageable size in comparison to the rest of Gokula. So in this way, a normal size, if you will. So Krishna said, Govardhan, how is it that you could expand into such a size and not take into consideration the feelings of everyone else who lived here in Gokula? Goloka, excuse me. I'm saying Gokula all this time. It's Goloka is what I mean. So this is an exchange between Krishna and Govardhan that came about at the request of Srimati Radharani. And this led him to actually manifest himself there in Gokula. Now, I'm looking about me because I've left one important book in the other room. So you're going to have to give me just 1 second. I can't believe I've made such an amateur mistake. Give me just one moment. All right, my apologies. It's quite interesting because I've been studying this book, Ananda Vrindavan Champu, and this book is written by Kavi Karnapur. And I was reading the section on Govardhan the actual day that Yashoda texted me and said, by the way, we were wondering if you would, speak about Govardhan. And I thought this is perfect. So I want to read this section from Ananda Vrindavan Champu and give a little insight into this here. An exquisite line of mountains called Govardhan stretches down the middle of Vrindavan. Giriraj's thousands of peaks appear like the thousands of hands and feet of the Purusha avatar. Many smaller hills surrounding these peaks and many jeweled plateaus and lakes like Radhakund provide additional beauty. In this way, Giriraj appears like a romantic hero decorated with many jeweled bracelets and earrings. It's interesting because when we think of the Purusha avatar, Purusha Sukta is describing all the different features, the unlimited hands, and in Bhagavad Gita, we have this description of the Purusha avatar, of all the unlimited hands, the universal form. We don't think of it as something very attractive that someone's usually very anxious to see. There's usually just a certain circumstance. But here, all of the different mountains and peaks on Govardhan appear like that Purusha avatar. So it's a much more beautiful view. So Kavi Karnapur continues. Just as Giriraj contains many minerals of red clay and arsenics, similarly, the Sanskrit language features a variety of word roots. By the Lord's grace, Dhruva traveled beyond Maharloka. Similarly, by the mercy of the Lord, Govardhan has surpassed the splendor of Vaikuntha and become famous as the best of mountains. Dhruva Maharaj, of course, we know he is the best of devotees. By the mercy of the Lord, Govardhan has become known as the best of mountains. Just as Kartikeya, the commander who is difficult to conquer, supports the king of heaven, Govardhan holds many difficult to enter caves. Some of you may or may not be aware, there are many caves even to this day on Govardhan Hill. We're going to speak about those a little bit later. But you can find those caves if you know where to look for them. You can see them when you're doing parikram in the Apsaravan, which is after Govindakund. You can see those caves up on the high ridge there. At any rate, so just as Kartikeya, the commander who is difficult to conquer, supports the king of heaven, Govardhan holds many caves that are also difficult to enter. Many snakes surround the valuable sandalwood trees adorning the Malaya Mountain, but there are no snakes guarding the unlimited treasures found on Govardhan Hill. Now, Raghunath Das Goswami makes an interesting comment about this. He says that there are no snakes on Govardhan Hill, but if there are snakes on Govardhan Hill, they don't bite. But if they bite, they're not poisonous. But if they're poisonous, their poison has no effect. So even you find some snakes on Govardhan Hill, no need to worry. One of the benefits of worshiping Govardhan Hill is to be freed from any fear of snakes. All right. So Lord Shiva holds the moon in his top knot, but Giriraj's peaks touch the moon. Shiva is fearsome, but Giriraj is gentle and kind. It's described that in the earlier times of Govardhan's presence, that his peaks were so tall that when the sun god would take his chariot around the universe, his horses would stop and graze on the slopes at the top of Govardhan Hill. Just let that sink in for a minute, how tall Govardhan was. As Krishna is adorned with forest garlands that reach to his ankles, Govardhan is decorated with long lines of forest. Cascading waterfalls caress all sides of Govardhan. Bhumandala is made pleasant by the Loka mountains, whereas Govardhan pleases the eyes of all devotees. Govardhan is made glorious by banyan trees that distribute joy to everyone. The interior of its caves are the ornaments of bliss. It is Govardhan's nature to protect the deer and other forest creatures with these caves. We sometimes think of caves as a little bit fearsome, maybe you get lost or, no one can find you. But the caves on Govardhan are very inviting, mainly because they're not dark, and they give shelter to not only the residents, but also to the animals that live there on Govardhan. Mount Kailash, Mount Meru, and even the best of metaphors cannot compare to the unlimited glories of Govardhan. Kailash itself is composed of silver, and Mount Meru is made of gold. They, however, pale in comparison to Govardhan, which is eternally manifested and made of inconceivably precious jewels. Srila Prabhupada would often quote this verse, Premanjana Charita Bhakti Vilochanena, that when we have that proper vision that's covered with love, that's tinted with love, then by that vision, we'll be able to see the spiritual world as it is. We would sometimes lecture and mentioning the hogs and dogs and monkeys and things in Vrindavan, that if one goes to Vrindavan and just sees those, then they don't have the real eyes to see Vrindavan. So here, it's mentioning what Govardhan really looks like if we have the actual eyes to see it. Just as dancers enhance the sweetness of a theatrical performance, the sonola trees enhance the sweetness of seeing Govardhan Hill. The streams flowing with roots of many sandalwood trees growing there pick up the fragrance of those roots and pass it through the valleys and the grasses growing on Govardhan. Just imagine you light some nice incense, some sandalwood incense, and you can really appreciate how, but imagine the entire area of Govardhan has that fragrance carried by the roots of the trees that the water is washing over. It's so wonderful. When all of the different animals, such as rurus, chamaras, gavayas, gandharvas, shmaras, rahisas,
Looks like there's some technical glitch here. Let's see. Can try to reach out to Chaturanga Prabhu. It appears that Chaturatma Prabhu's network connection got dropped or something like that. We'll try to see him get reconnected.
Okay, are we back?
Yeah, I think we're good now.
All right, sorry about that. We've been having storms through here and have some ins and outs in service, so it looks like that's what happened. So back to where we were describing the different types of animals that we see on Govardhan. So the first one mentioned is rurus, and rurus are a type of deer. And as we're going to find, there are many different types of deer on Govardhan. We also have chamaras. Chamaras are a type of a lion, a tiger, in the lion family there. So we have even some of these fierce animals. We know from the pastimes of the six Goswamis that it was a time in which there were animals like that living in Vrindavan. Gavayas are a type of oxen that are there. Shrimaras are a second type of deer, and rohisas are a third type of deer. So we've got three different types of deer so far. And then we have the cutest, we have sasas. Sasas are little rabbits. They're a cute type of rabbit that lives in Govardhan. And the final one is the sambaras, which is a fourth type of deer. So we have rabbits, we have oxen, we have tigers, we have four different types of deer. Everybody's quite happy together there at Govardhan. So let's continue with this description. The crystal rocks of Govardhan reflect the blue rays of the sapphires and appear like Balaram dressed in blue cloth. The large emeralds reflecting the golden rocks look like Narayana in a golden dhoti. The yellow sapphire platforms standing on beds of diamonds appear like Lord Shiva and the goddess Gauri. The waterfalls pouring over the emerald cliffs look like Lord Ram carrying his curved bow. The ruby platforms standing on silver, idly falling from the tall peaks of Govardhan, carry the reflections of multicolored jewels and appear like rainbows. The light coming from these various effulgence streaks through the sky, giving the impression of rainbows everywhere. The description here of all the different colored stones, if you're familiar with having done Parikrama at Govardhan, you'll be aware that there are different colored stones that highlight certain areas of Govardhan. And if you know where to look, you can find white stones and yellow stones and blue stones, and as well as the brown ones that one commonly sees there. So all of these different colored stones are found there. And of course, during the time of Govardhan's original appearance, it's so many different colors, just like rainbows. Govardhan has many thrones made of cooling stones for the sitting pleasure of Krishna. Its flat, jeweled, studded areas await to serve Krishna's rasa dance. Its wonderful caves look more enchanting than temples made of jewels. For serving Krishna, there are many flowered canopies that pour down fragrant pollen, when shaken by the wind. The dense, cool forest provides soothing relief from the hot sun. All of the varieties of animals mentioned, such as deers and tigers, live there together in peace and harmony. Now, this is an interesting point because as we were naming all these different types of animals, okay, well, we've got deer of 4 different types and we've got tigers, so looks like somebody's having lunch. But really, that's not the way it works on Govardhan. The natural animosity between these different species is not at all found there. Now, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives a very interesting explanation of something here. We all know the details of the pastime. I won't spend too much on that, but we know all the details of the pastime of how Govardhan's relationship with the cowherd men and the worship of Indra and all of that took place, how Krishna stopped all of that, and then how Govardhan how Indra sent all of these Samprataka clouds and so to cause trouble. Now, when this began to happen, Krishna saw the devastation that this rain was bringing, and he decided he had to do something. But he thought to himself, if I just go and immediately lift Govardhan Hill, it's going to shock everyone and cause a great panic because everyone will think I'm not capable of doing it. So we need to have an istagosti. So he called his immediate boyfriends and confidants, the cowherd boys. You know, everybody's got their little group, you know, that you can sit down and discuss things with. So he called these cowherd boys and he said, okay, so, you know, I want you all to understand the rains are coming. It's a very devastating manner in which they're coming. So I'm going to lift Govardhan Hill like an umbrella and give shelter to everyone. Now, when he heard this, in a very confused manner, Subal said, so you want us to all get umbrellas and go to Govardhan Hill? Because he thought Krishna's describing, he wants everybody to have umbrellas. And then Vijay said, you know, the rain is so strong. This is serious rain. A few umbrellas aren't going to help us out here. So Krishna said, no, you misunderstand. I will lift Govardhan Hill like it is an umbrella for everyone to come under the shelter of. Sridham looked at Krishna with a very doubtful expression on his face. And he said, oh, is that so? Might I remind you that every day when we go out to the pasturing fields, you have me carry your lunch bag because you say it's too heavy to carry. So how is it you plan to lift an entire mountain? And Krishna sucked in his chest and in a very proud way, he said, empowered by the love for my friends and the desire to protect them, I can lift the entire 3 worlds, but to speak of this little hill. When he said this, all the cowherd boys turned and looked at each other, and then they all broke out into great laughter. Isn't that just like your buddies, right? So the older boys called out, this is impossible for you to try and do this. And the younger boys called out, no, this is very dangerous. It'll never come true. Now, Stoka Krishna is the oldest of the cowherd boys, and he's always looking out for Krishna. He's always kind of making sure that he doesn't get, you know, in any difficulty and all. So he said, even if you were able to do this, I wouldn't allow you to do it. And then he continued, Krishna, you know, you may have killed some demons, but lifting this Govardhan Hill, this is a whole nother thing. If you failed at doing this, you'd be greatly embarrassed. So, you know, I can't allow you to do it. Now, then Stoka Krishna gave a conclusion. He said, my dear Krishna, he said, be reasonable. When you wrestle with us, you get tired very quickly. How is it you plan to lift Govardhan Hill? So the boys all started joking and laughing amongst themselves, you know, a lot of support he got. So they started joking and laughing amongst themselves. Okay, Krishna, if you plan to lift Govardhan Hill, first, show us a feat of strength that'll convince us you can do it. See this kadamba tree there? And if you're looking at me, you can see it. It's right there behind me, just to the back there. They pointed to the kadamba tree. They said, twist this kadamba tree's trunk just like you would wring a cloth, wring out water from a cloth. If you can do that, well, then we'll talk about lifting Govardhan Hill. So Krishna looked at it. He walked over, he twisted the trunk, and then when he was through, he tied all the branches in the trunk, tied them all together in a knot. I mean, this is an interesting scenario because it's Krishna and the cowherd boys, and we know there's a special rasa between them. But even Krishna gets the sauce from his buddies. They give him a hard time, you know. Some of you who are maybe in my age group may remember there was one famous comedian whose punchline was, "I can't get any respect." So, and here we see Krishna is being treated the same way by his friends in a very joking manner. They're giving him no respect. You can't lift Govardhan Hill. You can't even carry your lunch bag. All right, if you think you can, ring out this tree. So anyway, Krishna did ring out the tree, and it's no surprise to any of us that he did. And we all know the result of the pastime that Krishna did indeed continue and protect the residents. Now, interesting point. We mentioned that there are many caves on Govardhan. So I was always looking for these caves whenever I'd circumambulate Govardhan, you know, where are the caves, you know, because like I said, I was into caving when I was young, and I was thinking, wow, you know, where are they? I'm looking for them, can't find them anywhere. So I asked one local Baba, he was a pujari in one of the temples at Govardhan. I said, Babaji, I said, please, so much description are there of the caves, but I've never seen them. Where are they? And he said, oh yes, there are many caves, but they are all on the top of Govardhan Hill. Now, by him saying that, I realized that I was never going to see these caves. They're up on top of Govardhan Hill. So, but there is one particular cave that's just outside of the Radhakund Shamkund area. If you're familiar with the Parikram path, when you cross that little waterway there, in that area, there's a cave that one sadhu lives that's underground. He's taken some devotees there, and it's quite a large size cave, very, very comfortable, nicely set up, and it's quite easy to live in. So at this time when Govardhan is here and the attack is coming from Indra, there are many caves like this on the base of Govardhan. As a matter of fact, there's one cave that runs all the way underneath Govardhan Hill from one side to the other. So Krishna enters into this cave, and Krishna goes through it all the way. Now remember, he doesn't need a lantern because the caves are all illuminated. It's not like he's going in a dark tunnel somewhere. So he gets exactly to the middle of Govardhan Hill, reaches up with his finger, and then lifts Govardhan like that. And when we think about it, this makes sense. Because imagine if he was trying to lift Govardhan from one side. Well, Govardhan's going to be top heavy. It's going to tilt, you know. I mean, of course, Krishna's a master of all mystics and can do anything, but it just makes more sense that he would have lifted from the middle. So this is described by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, how he went in there and lifted up the hill like that and called all the residents in. Now, there's devastating rains. I mentioned when this power outage hit that just before this, we had some rains here in Alachua, and it rained very, very strongly for an hour and a lot of wind and everything. And of course, this was nothing compared to what was happening during the time of Govardhan Leela. So much rain was there, so much devastation. And what happens when you get rain? You get lots of mud, puddles, debris. So we can imagine when Krishna lifted up Govardhan Hill, we all know what happens if you take a shovel of dirt and dig into the ground and lift up a big chunk. Underneath it is more water, more dirt and roots. And if the water's coming, then it gets all muddy. It's the dream of every 4- and 5-year-old boy. But we have an interesting description here. It comes from, where am I here? Garga Samhita. It describes that, oh, and I'm sorry, excuse me. No, that's not it. Here we go. Describes what's underneath Govardhan Hill. And this is from Gopal Champu, Jiva Goswami. So he describes that when Krishna picked up Govardhan Hill with the small finger, he invited all the Brijbasis to come over and come underneath the hill. And when the cowherdmen reached Govardhan Hill, they saw there was no water going in, and neither was the land underneath muddy and damp. What they saw was their own Sham Sundar standing there gracefully and effortlessly, holding Govardhan Hill, and they felt great bliss in their hearts, and a great feeling of satisfaction flowed out. So they all rushed under the hill and were amazed that as they rushed in, there were beautiful steps down into the shelter under Govardhan, made of brilliant jewels. And as they proceeded down these stairs, they saw there were wonderful houses made out of pearls and other priceless gems. And the ground was studded with billions and billions of jewels. A very fragrant, cool breeze blew underneath that brought with it the smell of sandalwood and other fragrant flowers. And there was a wonderful arrangement for every comfort. In every one of these jeweled homes was all the necessities one would need for living comfortably, bedsteads and furniture and stock houses of grains, and all of this was all there, so there would be no difficulty. And seeing the astonished look on the faces of the cowherdmen, Krishna became very, very happy. It mentions that sometimes while holding up Govardhan Hill, he would place his other hand on the shoulder of a friend. And when doing so, he looked like a dazzling diamond house. And Krishna was the blue pillar in the middle of that house. Govardhan was a roof, and the rain was falling on all sides like a pearl necklace, drops of rain coming down. Now, there were only drops of rain, not deluges of rain. And this was because Vasuki, the transcendental serpent of the Lord, wrapped himself around the bottom of Govardhan Hill and acted like a dam to prevent the water from rushing off. And Sudarshan Chakra wanted in on the fun too. So he appeared and he was in the sky there. And as the water would come up and fill up around the coils of Vasuki as he prevented it from flooding down, he would dry it with the rays from his Sudarshan Chakra. So in this way, there was no discomfort or difficulty for any of the residents there. So now we have this understanding of Krishna's, of Govardhan's appearance with Krishna, Radharani, and the gopis in the spiritual world. We can also look at a way at which he appears here in the material world, because Krishna, he does not go anywhere by himself. He takes with him wherever he goes all of his associates. So it describes that there was a discussion taking place between grandfather Bhishma and King Pandu. And this discussion was then retold by Sananda, who's the brother of Nanda Maharaj. Now, generally, these personalities from the Mahabharata, Pandu and Bhishma Dev, we don't think of them as being, where at least we don't hear much discussion of them being aware of Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan. But they were, and they were discussing this point, and this story is later told to Nanda Maharaj. So once when Krishna was in Goloka Vrindavan, he noted to Radharani that he had to go to the material world. He had to perform service here to his devotees. This is a wonderful thing about Krishna. He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, accepting service from everyone, but he wants to give service to his devotees. Paritranaya sadhanam yenasaya chaduskritam. So he appears. Now, when coming, he said, Radharani, will you please come with me? And Srimati Rani gave an exclamation of, what? How could I ever go anywhere where there was not the Vrindavan forest, the Jamuna River, and Govardhan Hill? And Krishna replied, oh, don't worry. I've already arranged for all these things to be there. Now, it's very important that these three items, these three personalities, these transcendental individuals are present in all of Radha and Krishna's pastimes, either individually or collectively. Namely, the Vrindavan forest, the Jamuna River, and Govardhan Hill. So Krishna had arranged for them all to be able to come here. Now, way back in history, we have the Himalayan mountain range, the master of all mountain ranges. And there was the king of the Himalayas, and his name was Dronachala. And Dronachala was there with his wife. And one day, Govardhan was born. The king of the mountains had a child, and that child's name was Govardhan. Now, when the birth of Govardhan took place, all the other important mountains, Sumeru, the Himalayan personality, the personality of the Himalayas, they all came to take darshan. And they offered obeisances and circumambulated the new child. This was the first circumambulation of Govardhan. Wonderful story there. And so they offered all types of prayers and blessings. And he was praised as the personal mountain of the Supreme Lord. And there was a prayer offered, obeisances unto you, who are the crown of Goloka and who will sit in Vrindavan's lap. Obeisances unto you, Govardhan, the umbrella of the Lord. This is a wonderful prayer describing him. So Baladev Vijayabhushan describes how there were all of these different colored stones on him. And we know the story. The sage came and asked Dronachala, your mountain is very, very beautiful. Please let me bring him to my ashram. This is what I would like to do, is bring him to my ashram and have him stay with me. So Pulasta Muni was the sage. So Dronachala, his wife, they did not want to let Govardhan go. And then, as is the nature of sages who perform great austerities, they also sometimes are known to be a little angry. We mean no disrespect to Pulasta Muni. We don't want any curses or anything. But so he threatened Dronachala. If you don't fulfill my request, I will curse you to become as small as nothing. So Dronachala was upset. At this point, Giriraj, being the dutiful son, stepped in. And he said, Father, I will go with him. It's okay. Don't worry. Everything will be fine. So he said to Pulasta, he said, one condition. How will you get me there? Pulasta said, I'm a mystic. I'll simply hold you up and fly with you. Govardhan said, okay, I'll agree to that on one condition. If for any reason you set me down, wherever you set me down, that's where I'll stay. No ifs, ands, or buts. So Pulasta agreed. Of course, this isn't a problem. So they left. As they're proceeding south, they pass over the land of Vrindavan. Now, there are two ways the story goes at this point. One is that Pulasta Muni, due to having the nature of a body, needed to address the call of nature. Second side, internal side, is that Govardhan saw that, oh, this is Vrindavan, this is where Krishna's pastimes will become. And so he became so heavy that Pulasta Muni was forced to set him down. So once Govardhan was set down, Pulasta Muni did what he had to do, performed oblations at the inn, came back, and he leaned down to pick Govardhan up. Tried to lift him. Govardhan wasn't going. He said, okay, let's go. Govardhan wasn't moving. The sage didn't, we hear the story, the sage became very angry. The sage didn't get angry right off the bat. First, he began to plead. He begged. He embraced Govardhan even. He said, sweet words, please, come with me. Oh, best of the mountains, don't make yourself so heavy I can't lift you. You seem very angry at me. Please tell me why. What have I done? We must go forward and move on. So Govardhan said, hey, don't blame me. It's not my fault. You put me down. Don't you remember the agreement we had? So I'm staying right here, and I'm not moving the space of one finger from this place. Not the space of one finger. Now is when Pulasta becomes angry, because he realizes he's been outsmarted. So he says, you arrogant mountain, you're not fulfilling my desire, and therefore I'm going to curse you. This is a really important point in the story, because as devotees, we are not looking for Govardhan to fulfill our material desires. Sometimes, Sachinandana Swami told me this story once when we were at Govardhan. Sometimes people, they do Govardhan Parakram, either Dandavat Parakram or just walking Parakram, and they have some desire. They want to get, success in their material life, or they're looking to get some passing grade in school, or you'll see the husband and wife do together so they can have a child, things like this. He explained that Govardhan, he sees these people and he doesn't even look their direction. Yes, you have your desire. Yeah, go and take it. But when the devotee is going around out of pure mood of devotion for serving Govardhan, he listens. What is that devotee's heart while he's going around? Oh, he wants prema bhakti. Oh, let me walk a little more behind him and see. Oh, yes, he still wants, all right, I will give to him. So this is the proper mood that we should have as a devotee, not thinking that Govardhan is required to give us service, to give us our desires, to fulfill our needs, but that I'm here to serve Govardhan. So Palasta Muni had the whole thing backwards. You're not serving me, therefore I'm going to curse you. Of course, you know the curse. It's a very famous curse, that you would shrink bite one mustard seed. And I don't know if any of you are familiar with cooking. You get one mustard seed in the palm of your hand. It's not very significant. But over the course of many thousands of years, it becomes very, very significant. So in this way, he became very angry and he cursed Govardhan, and Govardhan stayed and very happily enacted all of the pastimes there. Let me check. I want to be sure. Oh, I'm staying on time. Fine. Now, interesting thing. We talk about the size of Govardhan. Now, in the spiritual world, Satashringar, 100 is unlimited. So the size of Govardhan doesn't really matter. But in our, linear state of consciousness here in this world, we like to have an idea of things. So this is given to us as to the size of Govardhan when he was originally set here in Vrindavan. 800,000 miles wide. That means from Govindakund to Kadambavan across, or from Kusum Sarovara across to Udhavakund. That's width. So 800,000 miles. And 8 million miles long. That's from Radhakund to Punchari, that distance there. And 4 million miles high. So now we can understand how it is that the horses of Surya were grazing on the tops of Govardhan Hill. Now, these figures in the spiritual world mean nothing, and to us they sound very fantastic. How can it possibly be? We have to go back to the point Prabhupada gave us again. Premanjana Charita Bhakti Vilochanena. Are we seeing with the eyes of Shastra? Or are we seeing with our mundane vision? So we have to be very much aware of how we're looking at Govardhan in this way. Now, the mood of Govardhan is described as being just like the mood of Balaram. Govardhan wants to give service to Krishna and his pastimes. He particularly, just as Balaram serves as the Brahman's thread, as the seat, as the shoes, as the umbrella, and on like that, Govardhan, it's described by the gopis in the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam, that Govardhan serves the Lord and his cows and his associates with water for drinking, soft grasses, both for eating and resting on, caves for seeking shelter in, fruits, flowers, and all types of assorted vegetables. So in this way, Govardhan serves the lotus feet of Krishna and Balaram. And what are the symptoms of him serving? How do we see that he's satisfied? Because Govardhan shows symptoms of ecstasy. The tall grasses on Govardhan Hill are understood to be the bodily hairs that stand on end. And the morning dew is understood to be the blissful perspiration of ecstasy that manifests. And the small trickling creeks that make their way through the stones on Govardhan Hill are understood to be the tears of his love. Now, Jiva Goswami gives a very nice explanation in his Gopal Champu of the different stages of worship that we are familiar with in worshiping the deities and how they're found to be present on Govardhan Hill. The jeweled boulders provide asanas, or thrones. The cooing of the birds on Govardhan provide a welcome when you invite the deity. The mixture of streams with flowers and durba grass and seeds provides the padya that we wash the feet with. The durba grass in the puddles of the hoof prints of the deer on Govardhan represents the argya. And the ponds on Govardhan filled with scented flowers represent the achman that he rinses his mouth with. And the fresh yogurt, ghee, and milk from the cows that mixes very easily with the honey dripping from the hives on the trees is his madhuparka. The water on the summits of the hill as it falls from in the waterfalls is his bath. And the gold-colored bark and fine silk threads are the ornaments. The colored powders found on his hill, on the hill, as well as the sandalwood paste and red and white minerals, are all seen as the ointments used to decorate the Lord. Malati and other fragrant flowers represent the gardens. Oh, and this is very nice. The dust raised by the hooves of the Sarabi cows represents the smoke of the incense. And the glittering of the many different jewels on Govardhan represent the lamps one offers to the Lord. And the ornaments that Govardhan offers consist of gunja berries, peacock feathers, and varieties of clusters of flowers. And then, of course, the fresh fruits and roots make up the meals that are given. And the scented water that is fresh with the tulsi manjaris makes up the mouthwash to rinse the Lord after he eats. And the champak flowers and varieties of other scented flowers swaying in the breeze fulfill this arti of the Lord's worship. But Jiva Goswami goes on. He describes that the budding nukula and other trees form a parasol over the Lord. And the Govardhan fans the Lord with the branches from his trees that sway in this breeze that's always present on Govardhan. And the dancing of the peacocks becomes a festival of dancing for the pleasure of the Lord. And the singing of the sweet cuckoo birds and others is very pleasing to the ears of the Lord. So in all these different ways, Govardhan properly performs the 64 articles of worship that are there for worshiping the Lord. So in this way, these are just some of the very, very small pastimes that we can discuss about Govardhan. We're just closing in on 50. I'll tell one final pastime here. Lord Brahma, as we know, was in not such good standing for having stolen the cows and the calves. He was trying to figure out, how can I get mercy, get the, forgiveness of the Lord? There was no way that Krishna was giving him any. We remember from the Govardhan pastime when he stole the cows that Krishna turned his back on him, wouldn't even look at him. So Brahma thought, every day Krishna and the cowherd boys play on Govardhan Hill, and they take their lunch by the banks of the Manasi Ganga. And then Krishna goes across. He doesn't want to rinse his hands in Manasi Ganga. He considers it improper. So he goes across the little path there, and there's a kund there. And every day Krishna would rinse his hands and mouth there. So Brahma had the great idea. He's the creator of all species. He thought, I'll take the form of a fish and live in that little lake. And then when Krishna rinses his hands, I'll get the prasad that has been on his fingertips and touched his mouth. Then I'll get his mercy in that way. So this was his plan. So Krishna and the cowherd boys are there at Manasi Ganga. Krishna gets up, walks across the path to go to this kund to rinse his hands, and he looks down. Now, interesting thing about Brahma. Brahma has 4 heads. So the fish had 4 heads. So Krishna looks into the kund and sees this fish with 4 heads, which is very, very strange. He thinks, I'm not putting my hand in that water. And he walks back to Manashi Ganga and rinses his hands there instead. So Brahma didn't get that mercy. So that place is known as Brahma Kund. It's just across from Manashi Ganga. So next time we get together and have an opportunity to talk about Govardhan, we can do a complete parikram and discuss the different events that take place at all the whole different holy places on Govardhan Hill. But for there, we'll finish tonight. I'll turn this back over to Madan Gopal. If we have questions or however you want to orchestrate that, I thank you very much for this opportunity to speak about Govardhan.
Thank you very much, Chaturama Prabhu, for taking us so beautifully to the heart of Govardhan, the greatest devotees of the Lord. Also happens to be the Lord, and such beautiful narration of the detailed beauty. So we have a question from Jai Krishna. Go ahead, Jai Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Chaturama Das Prabhu, can you hear me? I can't hear you.
Okay. How about now?
Yeah.
Yes, Chaturama Das Prabhu, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. I have it here on my hands, the book, the Six Goswamis of Vrindavan by Stephen Rosen, new revised edition. And my question is related to the following that I find in the appendix section, and it goes like this. The 8 periods in the daily life of the deity may be compared and contrasted with Ashta Kaliya Lila meditation for deeper understanding of each Arati ceremony. 1. Mangalarati, 2. Shringar Arati, 3. Rajbhog Arati, 4. Uttapan Arati, 5. Sandhya Arati, 6. Vyalu Bhoga Arati, 7. Shayan Arati, and 8. Rasa Lil. There are some variations on this theme. Aratiks are sometimes called by different names, etc. But in essence, this is how the Lord and his associates spend their day. This is the inner secret of the Gaudiya Sampradaya, and it can be experienced on the spiritual platform by strict adherence to the process of Krishna consciousness. That all conditioned and even liberated souls benefit from this experience is the internal desire, Manobishtam, of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So my question is, Prabhu, as follows. Related to the pastime of lifting Govardhan Hill, are you with me?
Yeah.
Okay, so related to the pastime of lifting Govardhan Hill, my question is it that, my question is related to the timeline. Is it that the lifting of Govardhan Hill happens in the spiritual world like it happens for me here in the material world every day that I go door to door Sankirtan? Or is it that the lifting of Govardhan Hill happens in a completely different timeline? Is it that Krishna is there lifting Govardhan Hill every single day? Or is it that it happens in a completely different timeline?
Well, the problem that we have with ourselves is our brain is very linear, and therefore we think of everything in a very linear way. This happens first, and then this happens, and then this happens, and like that. And we take that concept and put it on the Lord's pastimes. The Lord's pastimes can be eternal and not be boring all at the same time. We do the same exact thing every single day at the same time. Eventually we become bored with it. Oh, I want to do something else. But the Lord's pastimes, whether they're taking place in the spiritual realm or whether they're taking place in the material realm, are eternal. Now, as far as the timeline, different acharyas give different information about that. And I'm not really well versed enough to speak on that. But I just know that the pastimes take place in the spiritual world, the pastimes take place in the material world, and they're eternally happening. And when we become more spiritual in our vision, we're able to see them a bit more clearly. Probably not the answer you were looking for, but the only one I can give.
Oh, no, Prabhu, it is very satisfactory. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So we're pretty much out of time for this evening for any more questions, but we want to thank you, Chaturatma Prabhu, on behalf of the devotees here for this lovely class. And I want to request, I see Nilmani Prabhu here, though I don't know if his audio is connected. If Nilmani Prabhu is here, I can request him to say a few words, but I think he has some audio disconnect over there. So anyway, on behalf of Nilmani Prabhu, I can also thank you. And we look forward to having all of you again tomorrow as we continue in this Zoom channel to hear more and more Krishna Katha. So
we'll say just one thing before we go, that it's really nice for me because I'm seeing so many faces of people that I never get to see personally, that I know for many, many, many years. And it's nice to be able to share Krishna consciousness in this enlivening way with them. So thanks to you, Madan Gopal, for putting this together. There's two of them right there.
Well, thank you. And I want to also offer thanks to Nilmani Prabhu and Yashoda Dula Prabhu especially for being such wonderful coordinators in the background and getting wonderful speakers such as yourself, which is really the real value and the real treasure of the Krishna consciousness movement is that we have devotees who are so absorbed in this nectar and inviting us to dive into that same ocean with them, and it is extremely sweet. And especially, I mean, today, I'd never heard so many detailed descriptions of how beautiful Govardhan is, and some of the sweet stories in the background. And of course, there's so much philosophy that comes out of it too. That how we try to apply our teeny brains to understand the Lord, and we, it's an invitation for us to put aside our limitations, and let the Lord be the Lord. So it's wonderful. Thank you again, once again. And just a quick announcement. So as always, we have our programs pretty much every night except for Saturday. So today we had His Grace Chaturatma Prabhu. On Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, we are exploring the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam with His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami Maharaj. And this Sunday we have Hari Parshad Prabhu, who will be, he's come on our channel many times, and also another great speaker. So please do join us every evening at 8 p.m. And with that, I would like to request, if you like, you can unmute yourself and say a quick Hari Bol to our dear Chaturatma Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hari Bol, Chaturatma Prabhu, thank you very much.
Hare Krishna, Chaturatma Prabhu.
Hari Bol, Chaturatma Prabhu. Thank you very much.
Happy to hear you.
Chaturatma Prabhu. Hari Bol.
Thank you.
Hare
Hari
Krishna.
Bol.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much.
Hari Bol Prabhu, thank you so much.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna Chaturatma Prabhu, thank you for such a wonderful, colorful, vibrant description of Govardhan. It was so sweet to hear such nectar. Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Just repeating the words of the acharyas, that's all. Maybe one day, by the mercy of all of you, I'll have the vision to see things like we're describing here.
Hi, Rocha, Purva here. Wonderful to hear you and to get the nectar of Vrindavan. Hare Krishna.
Hi.
Hi, Hare Krishna.
Colorful and vibrant, just like your clothing. Hare Krishna, thank you.
Harunaji.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hari Bol.
Alright.
Hari Bol.
Hari.
Wonderful session. Again, thank you very much, Prabhu.
We want to go on Govardhan Parikrama with you, Chaturatma Prabhu.
Yeah.
And you can tell us all the stories.
Next time we get together, I'll do Govardhan Park, I have stories on each spot, and we can do them successively like that.
Jai.
All right. Well, thank you all very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to Giriraj Maharaj.
Jai
Giriraj
Giriraj Govardhan. Jai Giri Govardhan.
Haribol.
Hari Hari Bol.